Hello and welcome to Real Parenting for the Sensitive Mom, the podcast for moms who feel everything and still show up. I'm Adrienne Bishop, your co-host and parenting coach.
And I'm Leah Andrioni, your co-host and family therapist.
Today we will be talking with Nicole Sabella, a multi-passionate dance professional. She toured the world as a core member of the Mark Morris dance group for a decade. She's a dedicated dance educator, certified wellness and high-performance mindset coach, and a workshop speaker and facilitator. She founded the Nourished Dancer in 2020, offering one-on-one coaching and group workshops that empower dancers with practical tools and heightened inspiration to level up their dance lives from the inside out. One of the tools Nicole uses with her clients is EFT, otherwise known as tapping. And so we're very excited to talk to her about tapping and its benefits for moms and kids. So welcome, Nicole. Thanks for being here.
Thank you so much for inviting me. I'm really excited to chat about EFT.
EFT, as a therapist, I have used for myself, and I really noticed how dramatic you can feel even after one tapping session. And so I tell my clients about it, and I give them resources to use as a self-care, as a self-regulating tool. But can you, for our listeners who may not have any idea what EFT is, could you explain it to them as if they don't know what it is? And how does it actually work?
Yes. I'm so glad you asked. So EFT stands for Emotional Freedom Techniques, but we can lovingly call it tapping. That's sort of acceptable in the ethos here. So tapping uses the same meridian system as a traditional acupuncture and Chinese medicine, but instead of using a needle, we lightly tap on known acupressure points. We do this as you're thinking of something that might be distressing to you. So a memory, an emotion, what happened before going to school in the morning, a mindset block or a stuck pattern. And what evidence continues to show is that essentially what this combination does is it soothes the part of the brain called the amygdala. And that's the part of the brain involved in the fight, flight, freeze response, essentially our stress center, right? And so not only that, it can lower the stress hormone cortisol and is even associated with things like improved mood and emotional regulation. So that's our feel-good neurochemistry. We love that. And the best part is that after tapping, you'll be able to think of the emotion or memory that was distressful to you. And it can be like recalling what you ate for breakfast in the morning, what you watched before you went to bed last night on TV. And I always joke that it's not like Men in Black. We're not like wiping your memory with tapping, right? But what we are doing is sort of reducing the emotional charge from the memory or the emotion. And it can, like you mentioned, it can have such dramatic effects because someone will ask you about this thing that was really distressing to you, an hour ago, and you're like, oh yeah, I'm good now. It can be that quick. Of course, a more complex problem takes more time, but tapping really can be very transformative.
That is so interesting. I love that way of it working, and it being fast is so helpful too, I think, for a lot of people, and it's accessible. You can do it anywhere, anytime. I love that. How would you say it's different from other like therapeutic tools like talk therapy or mindfulness or even hypnosis? If you are aware of those tools, but like, how do you think it's different than those tools?
It's definitely different from talk therapy because it has the somatic component and the acupressure component. So we're going beyond the thinking mind. I would say it's similar to hypnosis in that at times it can access the subconscious and the body-based knowing. Essentially, it is combining elements of CBT or cognitive behavioral therapy at times, but it's speaking directly to the nervous system and sending that soothing message to the amygdala. So it's different from traditional talk therapy in that we're not intellectualizing the problem as much. And in a different way, we're not glossing over the problem or putting like a shiny gratitude bow, a positivity bow on it, right? We're allowing the emotions to exist as they are. And I like to think of it as examining them. We're sort of like holding up, I feel a little angry today. We can hold it up, we can look at it, and in that process with self-compassion, which is an integral part of EFT tapping, we can allow the emotion to move through us in a healthy way.
Yeah. And I like with the tapping, because when I've done it, it's usually finding the hard emotion or maybe a phrase or feeling that you're struggling with. And you're going from that negative feeling and you're actively switching to more acceptance and maybe even positive association with that feeling. And then, like you said, that's when you have an hour later, like, oh no, I'm okay with that now. Because within the tapping, you've went from the negative to a little bit of neutral acceptance to, I can handle this. This is, something I can, not necessarily push off to the side, but say, I got this now. I feel like it really taps into more confidence that our body and our mind can now handle it differently.
Absolutely. I always like to say we don't rush to that. I call them the aha moments or that confidence place. But just in the act of acknowledging our feelings, we often arrive there, like more often than not. And so that's what can be so empowering about it, is that experience that you just highlighted.
And Nicole, I've done a couple other podcasts where we've talked about tools and then not given an example until maybe the end or not given one at all. So I'm wondering, do you think you could kind of explain what it's like to tap? And I know people aren't able to see you, but if you want to describe what it's like to go through one time and let us know what that's like, that would be amazing.
Absolutely. So the first thing we do is tap on the side of our hand, the outer side. We call it the karate chop point. So you could imagine what that looks like. And just gently tapping on the side of our hand, we would say 3 setup statements, and each one is followed by a more compassionate statement. So there is, of course, room for artistic expression here, but with our word choices, but we would always start with even though. So we would start with, do you want to give me an emotion maybe that we want to work through?
Try anxiety, because that tends to be a big one.
Okay, great. So we would say, as we're tapping, even though I'm feeling anxiety right now, I deeply and completely love and accept myself. And then we could do variations on that theme. Even though I feel this anxiety in my chest, I'm giving myself compassion anyway. Even though I have all this anxiety in my body, 3 times. Yeah. Right. And then we would go through each tapping point. So we have top of the head, inner eyebrow, side of eye, under the nose, the chin point, right underneath the collarbone. I call this the Tarzan point, the center of the chest. We want to gently tap on our chest. That's fun when you're talking with kids too. And then side of body, I call this the monkey point. Yeah. And then under the wrist, this is where all of the acupressure finger points connect, the inner wrist. And then we're back to side of the hand. And we can go through that. We call them each a round. So 3 rounds from top of head to side of hand. And we're going through the problem. So the first round is just acknowledging where we're at. We're not trying to get to any elevated place yet. We're just like, I'm so anxious. I feel it here. This happened, and we're just tapping through each point. And usually by the 3rd round, you're to the place where, like you said, I can handle this anyway. Whatever comes my way, I've got it. Even though I have this emotion, I'm feeling compassionate toward myself. I'm giving myself care. Validating your own emotion, of course, is a big part of it. And then we always want to stop, take a deep breath, and sort of check in how we're feeling now in comparison to when we started. And from there, we can say, I want to go forward, I want to move on, or I want to do another round. And of course, it can get much more complex. Like now that I'm certified in it, there's different techniques. There's the movie technique, there's choice technique, there's all these different things. But on the most basic level, that is the methodology.
Yeah. And what I really like about it is when you're going through that, you're mentioning the hard piece, but it's with that acceptance and sitting with it. And that repetition of the statements that really kind of take away the power of the anxiety also in that moment while you're going through the meridian points, which is helping you reprocess pretty much the emotion, right? So I use a lot of acceptance commitment therapy with clients who are talking about acceptance of feelings and really being able to detach from our thoughts and, how powerful that can be in the moment. And that's why I like the tapping, because you're sitting with it, you're acknowledging it, you're it, but then you're also doing something to, continue to process it differently in a pretty quick moment throughout the whole process of it.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering, what besides anxiety, what other kind of concerns or issues that moms or even kids could use the tapping for? And what do you use with your clients the most?
Sure. Any emotional intensity, which is pretty broad, right? Emotional regulation, big feelings. So for parents, that could look like frustration or impatience, worry about our kids, their development, or what happened at school, or what a child is going through. And also self-compassion when parenting is hard. It's like,
That's big.
When you're really mad at your kid and you don't know if you could even look at them. Like I'm giving myself compassion, even though I'm experiencing this and I'm still a good parent and all of that. Am I doing the right thing? Am I doing enough? And then for kids, it can be like learning that their feelings are okay. Because there is that huge acceptance piece of like, even for a kid, an even though statement might be like, even though I was really, really mad at mom earlier, I'm still a really good kid and she loves me. It can be something like that, right? It's like, I do feel this. And then, of course, there's a larger discussion that happens later when they're not tapping around, like, even if you're mad, you still can't hurt anybody, that sort of thing, but you're allowed to be mad. Right? That's totally okay. It can be things like picky eaters. I have a 12-year-old dancer client now, and her mom sought me out because she was having some food issues and even drastically, almost stopped eating. And so we've been working through that and things are going really well. Sharing toys, processing emotions when you lose a game, when things don't go your way for young kids. So it can really be a way to not feel scared of our own feelings and allow them to just move through us.
I love that. And I know that you work with dancers, so that's almost like a sports performance, right? So there's sports psychologists that help with that, and there's lots of techniques, but if you're able to use tapping in those moments, it sounds like that might be useful for sports performance. But I'm just imagining that could be used for so many things, like a test preparation or something at school that's kind of nerve-wracking. Or my daughter is a figure skater and a softball player, so she could tap before she goes to a game or a tournament, or she can tap before she goes on the ice and things like that. And I think a lot of kids actually can use tapping for performance, but in reality, it's, helps with everything. And it can be any sort of performance, even raising your hand in class or smaller things like that.
Shyness.
Shyness, exactly. Social anxiety. So they can feel, hey, guess what? I got this anxiety, but I'm able to process it and I can get through it and then I'm okay.
Yes.
One of the things that tapping works for me is I resist emotions kind of automatically. That's like my pattern, is to kind of clench up around them and not want to feel them. And so when I feel myself clenching up, I know that that's time for me to relax into the feeling, and it's uncomfortable. Like it's something I've had to get used to feeling is just, I'm okay. Like I can feel this feeling and I'm okay, much better at it now. But as I was getting older and growing up, that was really hard for me. And I feel like tapping allows me to process it as opposed to resist it, but it gives me a way to do it, as opposed to somebody just being like, don't resist your emotions, process them. And you're like, what the heck does that even mean? So I really like that it gives you like a way to do it. You have a path forward. And then, of course, we talked about anxiety, but like overthinking tends to be a big issue for our population, highly sensitive moms, spinning out in a cycle of thoughts, not being able to get out of them, maybe even having trouble sleeping. Do you use tapping for that too?
Yes. I should say I'm not a mom yet, but I do consider myself a highly sensitive person. So I understand that overthinking pattern that can very quickly go into rumination. And it starts off well-meaning, right? Like trying to problem solve, and then we just get stuck in a cycle. So tapping is excellent for overthinking because, like we chatted about before, it's sort of going underneath the mind pattern. We're not intellectualizing it. We're going into the body. And so we know that anxiety and overthinking is actually physiological. Heart racing, palms sweating, foot tapping, fidgeting. That's a body response. So the act of tapping is soothing that stress response, soothing that body response, and having a somatic experience through those acupressure points. And so you're overriding what's going on in the mind and just getting straight to the body in a lot of ways. And so the nervous system is soothed and the mind will more often than not naturally start to move slower after tapping.
That's awesome.
Yeah. I mean, what's coming up for me with the overthinking is also with our moms, the overstimulation, especially around with little kids, lots of noise, clutter. And I'm wondering what a tapping session would kind of look like for someone that feels maybe really activated, their nervous system maybe is on high alert because they have so much going on. And with all that stimulation coming in, does it help to focus on those points to really relax maybe the heart rate, relax the body from within?
Yes. So when we're overstimulated, or when, even if, let's say someone's like infirm, like ill, we can do a technique called hold and breathe, which we're not actually then tapping on the points because that can be very, very stimulating, right? We're holding each point and breathing. And if we're very overstimulated, we don't even have to say anything. We don't have to say anything. We don't have to think anything. We're just holding and breathing and feeling into our bodies, feeling the breath coming in and out. So in a way, it becomes like a mindfulness experience where you're noticing the sensation in your body. You're just focused on your breath and the tapping point. So that can be very helpful. As we know, with overstimulation, it's like we just need to strip everything down. We need to simplify, right? So I think that would be my recommendation in that situation.
Okay. I've actually never heard of that, but I can imagine doing it and having it be really effective, because I also feel like when you're holding those points, you're really like holding yourself. So instead of maybe having your hand over your heart, which you could do, but you're holding those specific points that we know have an effect on our body, and just being able to slow down and add in that breath within that structure, I think, because when we're overstimulated, everything feels out of control. And I feel like that the structure that tapping provides is also a good way to help to feel grounded in those moments.
Yes, it's very grounding. I like that word choice. Yeah.
I was just going to say, kind of off that overstimulation, kind of looking at that hard parenting moment where maybe it's not overstimulation, but it's frustration. Or maybe you're starting to feel angry because your child's not doing something that they need to do. Or with everything going on, you're frustrated because maybe your own expectations aren't being met for the day, and you're just finding yourself really activated. Would it be a traditional tapping, or is it more of the time to use more of the hold pieces?
Each person is different. I'll just start that, right? Like it's not one size fits all. And that's when working, if you are seeing a practitioner, it can be really helpful because they can sort of decipher what would be best in that moment. Of course, taking the client's needs into account. But I don't think always necessarily. We can still tap and acknowledge the frustration or acknowledge the anger or acknowledge what came up. If it's all feeling too much and out of control, we can simplify phrasing, right? We don't need to tell the whole story. It can just be like this anger, this frustration. And just strip it down to keep it really simple. And again, each situation is different. And when you're using it as a self-care tool, we kind of get creative. We're like, this feels good in the moment. But working with a client, if they were sitting across from me, I would sense like, okay, everything's just too much right now. Let's simplify and go from there.
Yeah. I like that. Simple.
I actually use a very easy one. I release and let it go. And then sometimes I'll get into more details, but if I feel like I just need like just a quick thing to move through, like and process, like just to calm myself down, I'll just say, I release and let it go, and just do that every point, just because it's like simple. But I do like the longer ones when I have a bigger issue or want to spend more time. So that's kind of my fast version.
Yeah, I love
that's what we do in the hypnosis. Do you have like an age that tapping works, like beginning age that might be able to use it?
Yes. So obviously developmental stages are very important. And I always say we have to consult with the doctor, all of that. But tapping is generally safe at all ages with important caveats. So even as young as 2 to 5 years old, we can even start gently introducing things. At that point, it's more about co-regulation, right? If mom and dad or if the guardians are tapping on themselves and co-regulating. Baby is learning and feeling into that. At that point, there's no formal setup phrases, but you could gently tap on baby, right? If it's not too overstimulating, that's totally okay. We're not putting language or anything to it yet. And it could even be done in sort of like a loving, holding, breathing, rocking, swaying sort of way. Ages 6 to 8, it's really important to introduce tapping playfully. Even music, tapping songs can be a part of things. And I think I sort of mentioned this, but the tapping statement would be something like, even though I'm feeling really mad right now, I'm still a really good kid, keeping it in language that they can understand. And simple feeling words, and really short. Maybe you only do one round. Maybe you don't even get through a round. 9 to 11, kids can start naming emotions and connecting thoughts and feelings developmentally at that point. They still probably need guidance from an adult. And age 12 plus, it's possible for kids to start having a little more autonomy with their tapping if they already know what it is and how to do it. And for teens, this is actually really beneficial because they can keep their feelings private. You know how teens are. They can keep it private and process it on their own. And so it really, really helps. It's a very good tool for teenagers. But I'm not sure if you've heard of this study, but there's this amazing study done out of UCLA. Just the act of naming emotions can already sort of release the resistance to them. So just saying, I feel X, or I feel sad, or I feel angry, or I feel frustrated, already is like, yeah, I feel this thing.
Definitely.
Well, and so as long as tapping is phrased as this and presented as not something to fix our feelings or make them go away, right? Because we don't want to make feelings good or bad. It can be introduced to children very, very young.
Awesome. That's really, really helpful. I love the breakdown that you just gave us. And I feel like I have done a little bit of tapping on my kids for them. So that's also something that you can do. I love that. So when it comes to just having like a realistic tapping practice, let's say like you're a busy mom or you want to have more of a self-care version of it where you're doing it maybe regularly or maybe not. Like, what do you see people doing in their daily practices for tapping?
Sure. Self-practice could be 5 to 10 minutes, maybe. And we go through the process, the sleight of hand, and then 3 rounds of all the tapping points. Maybe the first 2 rounds are really acknowledging the problem, and then like Leah mentioned, then we go into more positive or affirming statements in the 3rd round. And you can use it daily or as needed. There were times in my life where I was tapping multiple times a day. I like really needed it. And now it's more something I do each morning or each night before I go to bed. Okay. And if you're working with a certified EFT professional, then we can go much deeper, right? Able to see blind spots. Your coach or practitioner can guide you through deeper, more traumatic emotions in a way that, you know, they're trained in not re-traumatizing or causing more distress. And then that could be once a month you book a session or every other week or something like that.
Yeah, I was going to ask what the difference is like when you do it on your own versus with a practitioner, but it sounds like it's for more heavier emotions or maybe even something that's trauma-based or maybe childhood-based. Does that sound like a good place to go? Okay.
It can be. I mean, EFT is even used in for veterans and things like that. So it can definitely be trauma-based, but it doesn't have to be. You mentioned the high performance aspect. Sometimes I'm working with dancers on getting their triple pirouette or not worrying about falling on stage or things like that. So it really is a wide range. But if you want to go into those deeper things, I think it's imperative to work with someone who is knowledgeable and, more important than anything, helps you feel very safe and taken care of.
Yeah. I mean, I've done a lot of self-practice and then I had one of my hypnotist coaches do it with me in, conjunction and lead me through it. And it was so much more powerful, to be honest. It really was. And she was able to help me kind of come to some conclusions and go through things that I just wouldn't have come up with and wouldn't have seen. And even having people reflect it back to you, the feelings or the things that you're even saying, it like she would reflect it back and say it with me or before me. It was so powerful just having somebody repeat that in your presence. It was weird.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. And would EFT be something that you can use with a more neurodivergent brain, or would it look different?
I would say there's a lot more to consider when we're talking about that. So for neurodivergent kids, the action of tapping and the subtle touch and breathe action is usually safe. For some children, this brings a lot of grounding and a lot of balance. But again, it's not a one size fits all. We have to know each person, because for other children, it can be very overstimulating for them. So we want attunement there, of course. Every child's verbal processing is different too. So we would adjust how we say the statements associated with tapping, or even simply do the body-based aspect of it and remove the verbal aspect. And we always want to make sure it respects sensory preferences, of course, and making sure it's framed as optional and supportive and not a thing that they have to do. But it absolutely can be a very supportive and grounding practice.
Yeah. So thinking about that, are there any moments or topics that come up where you would not want to use tapping, where it may not be the best tool?
Yes. There are times where grounding is needed first, I would say, where we can do more of somatic, like gentle hazing or petting the body, or do some more energy medicine type of things that can be, like you mentioned, holding the heart, or more mindfulness, just breathing. And when a person's nervous system is stuck in a freeze state, that is when we go more to the touch and breathe.
Okay.
And really focus on just the body-based practices. And so, or just not wanting to intellectualize at that point, right? There are certainly times, I think it is so individual. And if a client were coming to me and I could see that they were just absolutely fried in that fight flight mode, we would probably just really make things simple again, and not overstimulate their system.
That makes sense, because you don't want to add any stimulation to an overstimulated nervous system. So going in it with more a gentle response.
Is there any misconceptions, or like people think this about EFT that isn't true, or there's some sort of myth around that's incorrect?
Yeah, I think a lot of people, I mean, your audience probably already knows this as highly sensitive people, but we're not getting rid of our feelings. A lot of people think tapping is like, I just want to get rid of it. I don't want to feel this anymore. And this will help me be more positive. And that is part of it, certainly, but it's actually much more effective when we allow ourselves to feel it, whatever it is. And the tapping action allows us to move through it. The only way out is through, right? It's one of those. So we can't put the shiny, happy bow on it right away. We have to let ourselves naturally reach that conclusion. And I think a misconception is that tapping is getting rid of feelings, when it's actually a way to process them.
Yeah. Do you have anybody that when you tell them about tapping, they're like, oh, that's not for me?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yes. People who are very, they can't imagine that tapping on your face could ever bring something, positive. But of course, people who are more interested in holistic or Eastern practices, or understand the mind-body connection in Chinese medicine, it's an immediate yes, usually.
Right. I agree with that. They understand the acupressure or the acupuncture. So it's kind of a similar situation. So that makes sense. What would you offer our audience for just like one takeaway from today, or one tool or one step they can take, like a baby step? Because we like to make it really simple for busy moms. Like, what can they do to start?
Yeah. I would say, when each person, whether you're a mom, whether you're just a person in the world, when we are balanced and regulated, we are much more powerful and much more effective in whatever we choose to do. So it could be very empowering as a parent, if you can, to set aside 5 minutes each morning, or 5 minutes before bed, after you put the kids to bed, and try it for a week and see how it goes. Find a YouTube video that you like, type in EFT tapping, and do it consistently for a week, and then check in and see how regulated you feel, how different you feel from a week prior. I would say that would be the best way to try to see if it works.
I love that. That's very doable. And I mean, if I just do one round, I can tap in a minute. So if you just need less time committed to it, then there is options for it. But I do know there's lots of good videos to start and just get an idea about what it looks like on a physical video, and then you can just take it from there and see how it goes. But I think it's a very accessible tool for most people, which is why I really love it. And it really does help a lot. And so I am curious, if people do want to reach out to you and get some support in this area, how would they do that?
Absolutely. I would love to connect with your community. You can go to my website, thenourished.dancer.com, and fill out my contact form on there. As mentioned before, I primarily work with dancers, but I have worked with and continue to work with people from all walks of life, and would be, especially as a highly sensitive person, would be honored to support your community.
Yeah.
So you can reach out to me there. If you're more of a social media type person, I'm on Instagram, Nicole.e.Sabella. And you can say hi over there too, but just feel free to reach out. I swear I'm not too scary. You can say hi.
Not at all. Yeah, no, that's great. I feel like this is good for people to kind of dip their toe in the woo a little bit, because it's not that far into woo, I don't think. I think it's very accessible and doable. So I love that you were able to come on and talk about kids and moms, and everybody can use it, which I just love about it. It's just such a great option. So thank you so much for being here. We really appreciate everything. And talking to you was great. So much fun. So thank you.
Thank you so much for having me, Adrienne and Leah. It was so great to chat with you and talk about one of my favorite mind-body tools. So thank you so much.
Great. Thanks, Nicole.
Thanks.